Hi, all you super moms out there. Welcome back to the Super Mom School podcast. I'm Mary Aldrich, and today I have a very special guest with me, Sue Gagnon, who is a fellow life coach. She has been married for 26 years. She's got two adult kids, and she has a passion for helping others dream and find God's assignment for themselves in any season of life. I'm so delighted to have you on the podcast, Sue. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here.
It's so great to have you. And I have to tell you, I am really excited to talk about this topic of adult children and dreaming and what happens next. Because number one, I have kids that age myself. I've got they're graduated and trying to figure out what they want to do, what's my role look like different. And I'm excited because this isn't really a topic that we've covered, I feel like, very well on the podcast yet. So I cannot wait to hear all about it. I think to get started, can you tell me a little bit about your life, kind of how you got to where you are today, a little bit about your family, some of those things to get us going here today.
Yeah, I'd love to. Because I love this topic because this is where I have grown and learned a lot. And it's brought me to where I am today. Of course, like that's what happens in our life, right? But I have to say, going back, like I look back now in my life, and I have spent a lot of my life struggling to dream. And that sounds really strange to a lot of people, because and my friends would be the first ones to acknowledge, it's like, yeah, I spent a lot of time saying, I just wish I could dream. And so I didn't really know it though. Like when you're going through life, you're raising your kids. Well, let's back up. Like even as a growing up, as a student, as a daughter, as an employee, before even getting married, all those things, I just felt like I was spending most of my time just trying to do the right things, just trying to do the next step. There was this order of operations I was trying to follow. And I thought that that's what life was all about. And when I look back, I thought that's what everybody else was doing too, right? We're just trying to do all the things, especially as young moms, and we're just trying to fit it all in, trying to, again, do the right things, whatever that looks like, when you're looking around and you're seeing everybody around you. And so it wasn't until, that's how I did life. That's how I did life.
It reminds me of like
until we got to, my daughter got to junior high. Now she's my youngest, so she got into junior high, which is like for us, which is like grade 10, 11. Because we do things a little different up here. Okay. And so when she was there, she took a course called CALM, and it's like career and life management, which sounds like an awesome course, doesn't it? Like I didn't have that when I was growing up.
Fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, like seriously. So we were,
Uh-oh. You cut out. All right. Okay, go.
Okay, so she's taking this course, and I thought she's not a big talker. She doesn't come home and talk a lot. So I just thought I'd ask some general questions, which I thought would be typical questions like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And so her response really surprised me. She came back with the whole idea of, as she's learning about how to become an adult, it was something she did not want to do. She was actually mad. Yes, it was so crazy. Like it seemed crazy and outrageous. And I was like, what? Like this is, because she was mad because she would, and I have permission to tell the story, by the way. So she was mad because she realized that it's like, to become an adult, she's going to have to do more studying because she wanted to get a decent job and to pay off, and then she'd have to pay off debt. And all she was having to do, all she saw was work, and that she wanted none of it. And I was like, I thought this is crazy. But what that did was that forced me to look into the mirror that she was holding up. And she was showing me how I was making adulthood look.
Oh, and that was right.
That was just life changing for me, because I was like, wow, I am just trying to get it all done. I'm trying to do the right things, but all she can see is the fact that adulthood is no fun. And I like looking back on it, it's like I can't tell you and tell your listeners how many times I said to my husband, we need to have more fun. Like we're just not having
Yeah.
fun doing this.
Yeah.
And you know, that's was I making more time for fun? No, because I was too busy doing all the things.
Right.
And
I want to pause you right there because I think a
yeah,
couple of the points that you've made are really impactful. Um, the one where you were talking about it felt like you just kind of had your head down looking at what needed to happen next growing up. And I know that the listeners can really resonate to that feeling of it almost feels like going on a hike, right? And you're so focused on the ground, you aren't bothering to look at the scenery around you or anything. And you're right, when we get in that focus and that habit, that then that's the picture that we create of what life looks like for our kids. And that is so impactful for us to realize that just focused on doing the next thing and getting past the next task or conquering the next mountain of laundry or whatever, and not jumping into that fun that you're talking about. It might be checking all the boxes, but it's not communicating to them anything other than like we just work so that we can work so that then we work in order to work. And you're right,
yes,
that's not appealing. It's not an appealing
absolutely.
framework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Okay.
love that actually analogy that you're using about hiking because I love hiking. Actually, I
You
love
do.
hiking. And totally like, you know, when you're going up that, you know, there's sometimes there's those areas that's more steep and you're just, yes, you are totally focused on what, you know, is right in front of you, where your
Right.
next foot is going to land.
Don't
You
slip
can't,
fall.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And like, oh my goodness. And you just, you can't look around. You can't even enjoy the
Mm.
moment.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it was a moment for me. It was a moment I was like, wow, I have to do something. Like, and I have to do something now. And that's when I kind of fell into this a mom boot camp. And it was the first mom boot camp that Hannah Keeley put on. And I
Okay.
thought, perfect, this is perfect. I can totally fix my life now. Like I just, you know, because it was all fast and it was going to happen. It was going to be a fast track to fixing what I thought was wrong. And so that's where I first learned about vision boards. And,
Okay.
you know, that's, I was like, hey, this is really cool, right? It sounds really cool. You know, you get to put your vision before your eyes, you get to put these pictures up, and as you do them, you take them down. And I thought, you know, great, that like, that's a really great step. Except I had a problem. And the problem was I didn't know how to dream. And
Mhm.
getting back to that, what I was talking about before, I didn't know how to dream. So I was like thinking, okay, what can I am a very practical person, and I grew up being a people pleaser. So I don't know, people pleasing, I mean, it's something that probably a lot of moms can resonate with. And practical, like I was so practical. Like if I could only dream of something if I saw somebody could do it. So, you know,
Yeah.
we all look around and we see what everybody else is doing and be like, I can do that. So my biggest dream I put on my dream board, my first dream board was, because we had just moved out onto an acreage, I said, I I can do chickens.
Ah,
I can do
okay.
chickens, right? Like that
Yeah.
is so practical. And you know, I saw my friend just start doing it, and I'm like, oh, I can do that too. It didn't feel very good, didn't feel very real. And then I realized how much work chickens were. So yeah, like I was, but I had it up there. That was my biggest dream on the board, because it's like I can do that. And you know, I
Mhm.
can now fast track, I can now look back and I can see all the signs in my life that have led me to where I am today. And if you look at my dream board right now, like there's, you know, I have new pictures on the board, I have taken the old ones off, but I do not have chickens.
You
It,
don't have
so
chickens. Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
never will
So
come chickens.
uh, this resonates with me so much. This whole idea of not really being sure what to dream, right? Like not how to dream, don't really know how to dream. And I wonder if some of that is just because it's unfamiliar, like it's just so unfamiliar this idea of dreaming, that we kind of do it hitchy a little bit at first. And I think your chicken analogy, like dreaming about chickens, is such a great example of it's okay also to put the best thing you can come up with out there, and then you learn from that, right? I'll never forget one of my first dream board pictures that I put on a vision board was a picture of a husband and wife sitting at desks next to each other, holding hands, like this idea of we worked in the same office and we were together. And then when COVID hit, that actually happened, and we had our desks were in the bedroom together, and it was the most miserable experience. I mean, he couldn't do calls, I couldn't do calls. One of us had to go, like, I didn't want him looking over at my shoulder. I felt like he was second guess. Like, it was terrible. Like, rip that thing off the note.
Yeah,
We
that's
cracked
no
up.
longer a dream. Just
Right.
moving on, moving
Yeah.
on.
So like, but we all have to start somewhere, I think, is where you're getting. And that's, yeah, we learn
Yeah.
by putting it out there. That's awesome. Okay. So you've got different things on your board now.
Yes.
And yeah. So you've kind of come through this process of learning how to dream, learning more about what your dreams look like. Why do you think this is so important?
Okay, so when I think back to my whole life, right? I think back to, the raising children and my daughter's reaction. Like, for me, it gets back to what she showed me, and how much that, like what our kids are seeing, what our kids are doing. We always think that we need to do the best for our kids. And there's a couple of, posts out there. And one was like, I wrote it down here, like, don't let a busy life get in the way of living your best life. And to be able to realize that we are role modeling for our kids. So when we want to help our kids with their dreams, right? We want to help push them in different, like whatever direction is best for them. But if they don't see us doing the same thing, we lose credibility in some ways. We lose integrity, because it's like, well, yeah, no, you guys go off, do your dreams. And now that I'm at the adult end of the young adult end of things, I can see their struggles in how to dream. And it's like, but if I haven't role modeled that dreams are possible, that dreams give us, and as moms, dreams give us focus and give us motivation and give us energy beyond what we have if we don't dream. I just want to bring up a client example, because I have a client who, who wanted, this is going to sound a little backwards, but I think it's a great example for your audience, because she wanted to lose weight. But she saw one of the things standing in her way was she had this Friday night tradition of sitting, and like, she looked forward to it. She planned it. That's the time she sat, watched TV and ate potato chips. And she was doing that. And when we went through it, she was realizing that she was filling that space with companionship. She was eating, and okay, so I don't want to get into the whole weight thing, but that was an example of how we get distracted by so many different things. So when we went through it and discovered that she actually has a passion for pottery, handmade pottery. So, discovering that she was filling this void with distraction. I'll call it distraction because it can take on so many different forms, right? Like, scrolling, it can be TV watching, it can be eating, all these distractions. But when we can focus on and be motivated by our passions and our dreams, they can provide that extra life that, like, that's what makes it our life, our best life, right? It allows us to, so she was able to then focus on something that she can become passionate about, but she hadn't made space for it. So she made space for something she was passionate about. She then could take her life to a different level. Like, then all of a sudden she's sharing her passion with her kids. and
Mm,
her kids are older too, right? And so she started dreaming about, well, what if I made this a side business? What if I take this and then I can teach my grandchildren? I can spend
right.
time in this pottery corner with my grandchildren. And then she can, it just takes on so many different forms. And for her kids to see her passionate about something,
Yeah.
and then anyways, it becomes a
Yeah.
legacy
I
moment.
love that vision of it becoming a legacy. And I think sometimes the hesitancy to put anything on the dream board is because we usually don't have that vision, right, of how it plays out 20 years from now. Or a lot of times, I think at the beginning, dreams often feel like they're taking away from what really needs to happen right now. We don't see how, okay, when I shift that, then these other things are going to shift too. And then it creates a different way of looking at it. Like we can't see all those dominoes falling down, that then we end up being in a completely different place. And we look back and think, oh, of course this leads to more relationship with my kids. Of course it leads to more relationship with grandkids and interaction. In that moment at the beginning, it looks like all this is going to be is taking away time from my family because I'm going to go take this pottery class. I'm not with them. I'm not present, whatever. I think that's
Yeah.
such a great example of how our brain works. And it
Mhm.
keeps us in that space of staying distracted, really. Like we end up choosing the distraction because we're afraid that the dream's actually going to be a disadvantage
Right.
in the beginning.
Abs-
Yeah.
Absolutely. And,
Go ahead.
and it's like I remember like in my early stages of marriage and young kids is that, always take time for your relationship, spend time with your husband, make sure you're building that relationship. And I kind of like, yeah, I'll get to that. But it's the same thing with our dreams. It's like, if we don't nurture them even a little, then we'll get to this stage of, we start looking at, what does the empty nest look like? What does that stage in life look like? And so
Mhm.
when we're able to have even the spark or the start of, a passion or a dream, even if we don't nurture it by actually physically doing it, but we keep it on like something like a vision board where we can see it and look towards it. Sometimes that whole process of changing seasons, into the, having the adult children moving into that empty nest syndrome is
Right.
so daunting and so
Yeah.
empty. So yeah, there's
Yeah. We
just
kind of like fear the loss and like I think a lot of times our identity has been wrapped up so much in like just caring for the physical needs of our kids. And that I've seen a lot of my clients get to that point and say, I, I don't know what my purpose is anymore. What, so what would you say, like, if somebody's there and they're like, I know that I'm like, this is not my role anymore to change their diapers, get them to school, make their decisions for them, those kinds of things. But I don't know what I want to do. What would you recommend to a person who's at that space?
oh, I love that question because yeah, I've been there. And so I I have made a recording of a dream board workshop, and in it
Okay.
I talk about the whole idea of like looking at our past, like just trying to figure out um what it is. Like, you can look at your past and you can see different things that have come up. Maybe you even look as far back as your childhood. It's like, what did you like to do? What used to bring you joy? Like
Mhm.
for some people it was like athletics was their life growing up. It was
Yeah.
like, well, have you thought about getting back into running? Like just for fun. Have you thought about whatever it is, like, joining um a rec league with other adults there, and just realizing that those options are available even in the smallest forms. Like, it's just, again, a season, as in, like, we have volleyball season, basketball season, winter
Right.
seasons. Okay, our winter season's a lot longer here, but we spend a lot of time like playing hockey, for example. So it's that like you can look back to look forward,
Yeah.
and revive some of those things, like, and talk to people who know you, like ask the questions, like, what do you what do you know about me, like that I'm really good at? Like, what do you think I'm good at beyond, like, because sometimes you need to get an outside influence to
Yeah.
see yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
Sometimes
so,
we're so familiar with our own uh, talents that we don't recognize them as talents. We think, oh, this is just something that everybody does. And it isn't. Yeah.
yeah, totally,
Right.
totally. Like when I look back on my life now, I see little bits of why I became a life coach. Like I see that in
Mm,
high school, we founded a group and it was called TTC, which is kind of ironic because we were in Toronto, and TTC stands for the Toronto Transit Commission, which is the
gotcha.
but we called it TTC for teen to teen counseling. And so it was
Okay.
just a matter of learning how to listen to people and listening to our
Mhm.
fellow peers. And then, I got into, of all things, forestry. So I was a forester for before having kids, a little bit after having kids. And what I loved about it is that the company took us into personal development things. So I learned this, 7 habits of highly effective people. And I thought
Oh,
it
yeah.
was really cool. Yeah, it was really cool to pull in the business aspect into something as, strange as forestry. So, and I loved that whole personal development aspect. And so I can see why, when I had the opportunity to become a life coach, that I can see why that happened. So again, it's looking back on what is it, pre-kids, what were your loves? What were your desires? What were your, it takes sometimes just some time to and space to step back and actually just, spend time doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and I
yeah,
think another thing that you just brought up in your example is that sometimes an interest that we have or we think is the thing that we're interested in leads us to discovering something else. And then we kind of shift gears into a different, kind of a different avenue that maybe that initial thing that we put on the dream board that we explored, maybe it doesn't actually come to fruition long term, but it is the door that opens to the next thing that we're interested in that we never would have gotten there otherwise. So, which I think just brings to the point that it's okay to try different things,
yeah.
and just like if it's an idea, why not give it a shot and see what comes of it. You just never know the twists and turns that it's going to take you on.
Yeah, and as you say that, like it totally makes me think of, and you probably discovered this too, is that sometimes that big scary thing is actually meant to open the door to
Right.
something that's going to be fulfilling and
Oh my
like
goodness,
maybe,
yes.
yeah, like and sometimes like I spent my personality, I spent a lot of time just being in the background. Like I excelled in just trying to fit in and just trying to not go above, the radar kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so sometimes that can hinder us. And especially as moms, we always want to take that step back, that back seat, right? Like we want our kids to flourish. We want our kids to take center stage. And so what is it that sometimes we're hiding from is it can be a little bit of digging as well, right?
Mhm.
As we're moving into other season of life,
Yeah.
beyond kids,
Yeah.
what is it that we're kind of hiding from that we've, always wanted to do, and like, well, we don't want to embarrass our kids by
Yeah.
like, oh, like doing a podcast, for example, like, like just taking that whole being able to again look within ourselves so that we can just be ourselves
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for
And
ourselves, not for anybody else.
and ultimately what a great example to our family, because that's what we want our kids to do. We of course we want them to work hard, but we also want them to pursue things in the midst of difficulty. We want them to go after things even though they feel scary or hard. We want to see them be brave and courageous that way. And it really doesn't work very well to communicate that message if we're coming from a place of, well, it's okay for you to dream, but it's like right now I got to get the work done. I don't have time.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and
That's awesome.
yeah, and that totally comes into the idea of like as moms, like we sometimes we like I know I'm guilty of this, is that thinking life is all about time management, right? So we always
Yes.
have these priorities and our kids are the highest priority. We got to make sure they're all
Right.
good and they're all looked after. And you know, sometimes that just means like, well, we don't have time for ourselves. I mean, that's like so classic, right? But
Mhm.
when we start developing our passions and our dreams, and we again that whole role modeling idea, but when we have our dreams and passions, we actually gain more energy. We gain more motivation in our life. And that takes us to new and different places for
Yeah.
ourselves. And again, that whole role modeling idea, I think we've covered, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's been
definitely.
an
So,
excitement.
so I'm just thinking about for our listeners, like it seems like they could really benefit from a few questions to ask around this. Like what I'm hearing is asking the question of something around like, what if it was okay to dream? Like, what would that look like? Um, and then you don't have to know the whole dream, but I've heard you talk about in this episode just like what's one thing that you've had an idea of that might interest you in order to kind of get the ball rolling, right? And then just like, okay, well, what's one step you could take towards that one thing and kind of moving in that direction? It's almost like it opens up a new little spot in your brain, so to speak, that like, oh, I can have new ideas from there. But you're right, it creates so much energy to be in that space of dreaming and following a passion of yours. Yeah, so valuable. So
Yeah.
valuable. So as we're wrapping up here, Sue, I want to ask you a couple of things. Number one, you mentioned the Dream Board workshop. That's a free recording for people, which we'll make sure that that's linked in the show notes. Anything else you want people to know about that free opportunity that's available?
It's a I had put it on live and which was awesome, and it's one of those things where it's like people are just like, oh, you got to get this out here because it gets you thinking in a different direction. So again, it asks a lot of questions. It takes you step by step on how to do the dream board, but it also goes into how to get the dream board to work for you. That whole idea of what to do after you've got the pretty pictures on the wall. So
Right.
it's a longer workshop, and it's a workshop because it's interactive. You pause, you kind of do things. So I just, you know,
Gotcha.
um, it does take you through all those stages, including how to actually work the dream board,
I think
which is
that's so valuable because I think a lot of people are like, why do I need help sticking a bunch of pictures on a board? And then what do I do with it? Like,
yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
glad that you cover what to do with it afterwards. Like, how does it actually serve you? That's huge. It's such a great, valuable asset to our listeners. And then if somebody wanted to get in touch with you uh, to talk more about coaching or around this idea adult kids and how to find your God's assignment, I love that phrase that you use.
yeah,
We have a link right to get in touch with you for that.
yeah,
We'll make sure that's in the show notes too.
yeah. Perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
good. All right, final question is, and this one I hope I don't stump you with this, but what do you think, or what do you wish people would ask about this topic that maybe they don't know to ask? Or what do you wish moms were curious about that they don't know to be curious about?
Ooh,
Any ideas?
good question, good question. So I would have to say the one thing that comes to mind is being like, how do I it kind of comes back to that one of the last points I made. It was just like time management.
Hmm.
How do I make time for myself? Like it all sounds beautiful, it all sounds great, but when we've got our head in the game and we're just feeling like we've got to do all the things, taking that step back. So basically the question is, how do I fit it all in? And
Mhm.
that becomes a question of what is important? What is a priority? And so being able to ask that question to yourself would be, what is it that I really want to accomplish with my life? And why, why am I not doing it?
Yeah.
What's keeping us from doing what we really want to do?
Yeah. So it's bigger purpose questions. I love that. It's
Yeah.
like we're hyper focused on time management for today. And I think what I hear you saying is like, hey, let's get up to a bird's eye view of this and say, wait, what's the purpose that we're trying to serve here?
Yeah.
A bigger purpose, a bigger vision, that then it helps those little things sort of filter out
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
to keep and what to get rid of.
Yeah. And when we pull God into the whole situation, he makes the time management happen.
He
He is able
does.
to expand our time, and it's just amazing to see. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When we get that broader purpose, I tell you, I can get more done when I'm operating in the purpose of God than any amount of me just focusing on getting the next thing done. So much more time and energy available. You're so right
Absolutely.
about that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Sue, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share. This is such a valuable topic for our audience. And I just know that there's going to be so much value that they receive from just having this conversation around what it looks like to dream and have new ideas outside of just being a parent and just getting the next thing done.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's been awesome and it's been lots of fun.
Awesome. Okay. We'll catch you next time.